Currently, I am no longer with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. None of what I say today will be representative of anyone there. That's my disclaimer. I have a company myself called Silver Logic Labs. We're a boutique analytical math company. We basically are just mathematicians for hire. So the talk tonight, I wanted to talk about an article that I read about 7 years ago that I'm now developing the second generation of that paper. The paper was called Winter is Coming. Cloud and Big Data Will Be the Death of Data Science. Does anybody have any idea why that is? I'm curious. I don't want to feed you the answers. I'd rather hear people tell me what they think. And it's very difficult to see you, so you might just have to yell. Sure. Bad data. Bad data is a great example. What is bad data in a big data environment? What do you mean? Polluting the models. All right. So data that is not curated properly, so it's creating erroneous answers. Close? Okay. Anyone else? Say again over? Bias. Definitely. And it's almost the same as this answer, meaning that the data doesn't represent what we think it represents. So I'll tell you my answer. And this is my own experiences, does not represent anyone else but me, is that I've watched multi-billion-dollar companies jump on the bandwagon that they're being forced to take on by investors, the street, peer pressure, ego. I can't tell you. I don't know the exact reasons, but I've heard many of these reasons. That we have to be in the cloud. We have to get all of our data in AWS, ADLS, Hadoop, you name it. I want a private cloud. I want a bigger cloud. I want my own data farm. The reality is that the companies that need that, you know their names. Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Now you jump down to smaller companies and you think about, well, why are they doing it? I think they do it out of a desire to show that they can be bleeding edge. But I can also tell you that I've been there when it happened, that a very large, second largest insurance underwriting company in the U.S. stood up an entire AWS instance, S3, and then they had EC2 running on it so they could process the information for all of the claims and applications that they would receive on a daily basis. It took them about 6.5 months, roughly, to install it, have it all set up, and replicate everything that had been running in a SQL Server environment and normal Blade servers, which we all grew up on. It ran for 6 weeks, and they got the bill. It was $250,000 for 6 weeks. And that day, the CEO said, a bad word, and then they said, turn it off. I want back on my old systems. Luckily, the systems weren't completely out of the building, but most of them had been turned off and were in the process of being pulled out. But they had to reinstall it all back. Took about 3 months, created a whole bunch of bugs and errors. And then a secondary error occurs after this happens. I have several examples of that. If you want to know them afterward, I'm happy to share. There's a second error that occurs. Data science. I hear people calling everything from a machine learning expert to an AI expert to a kid who just took a data boot camp and can now write a Python script that will do a logistics regression using ML, but doesn't know what any of that means. Yet they get hired as data scientists making $50,000 to $75,000 in Seattle right and left. And just to let you know, that's bad. It's really bad. And then you have people who have the right education and the know-how don't get hired because they come in and they say, hey, I want you to pay me a reasonable wage because I've been at this, for 25 years. Let me solve that problem for you. That's actually a sparse data problem. That's not a machine learning or an AI problem. Another question. Does anyone know the difference between a sparse data problem and a problem that would be considered an AI or an ML problem? There's a fundamental difference between the two. And if you guess, you're probably right. Sparse data means you have very small observations, small quantity of observations, like maybe less than 50. You can still solve that with a linear equation. I can do it on a notebook. You can do it on your cell phone a lot of times. But the industry has been convinced, well, let me finish that. A machine learning and AI algorithm takes thousands at the very minimum, and I'm doing that very generously because if there's a computer scientist in here, he'll say, no, dude, I can run a logistics regression on like 1,200 observations. And I'm going to say, no, you can't, because you really can't. You need hundreds of thousands and I would argue millions of observations to pull off a reasonable machine learning logistics regression. I've seen a few that can run on 100,000 or 200,000 if the data is just right for it, because it's basically counting and then making a decision tree based on 32% of the observations in this bin go here, and then the remainder here, splits again, splits again, splits again. And that might be meaningful in some instances, like a bus route. Like you have buses going all over the city. It makes sense because they turn at these intersections, they stop at these stops. But then think about something like grass growing. I want to run an ML on the different variations of grass and the way it grows. Now think about Johnson grass. Does everybody know what Johnson grass is? If you're from Oklahoma, you do. You raise cattle? I grew up raising cattle. So Johnson grass is a very straight grass. It has almost no vascular structure diversity. The leaves are almost all identical. But then think about something like a maple leaf or Bermuda grass that grows with all these bifurcations that occur continuously all the time in it. So if I was to model a piece of Johnson grass, if I had 100 observations, I basically defined the grass because there isn't that much variation. The model would converge. It would actually probably have an R-squared north of 0.98, which means it's extremely capable of explaining the variation in the dependent variable by the independent variable, which is a nice way of saying, or a fancy way of saying, it explains the rate of change in the grass based on the observations. But if I took 100 leaves or 100 observations from a maple tree, I could probably only describe less than 15 to 17% of the variation in the leaf structure of a maple leaf. Now imagine that I took tissue samples randomly from a body, a human being, not hurting them or a fish or a bird or a duck, doesn't matter, but a living animal, something that breathes. How many observations would I need to be able to define the tissue structures? Think about the complexity between your tongue, your brain, your skin, your bone, your tendons, your muscles. The diversity is all over the place. You would need thousands of observations of each individual one. Now jump up to Amazon. Amazon, when I worked there, wrote a thing called the Featured Merchant Algorithm. What it does is it stacks ranks all the sellers of blue ink pens for you, and then it stacks the best seller of blue ink pens for your particular tastes. Why? Because if it does that, it has an 18% increase in likelihood that you will purchase the product, retain ownership greater than 30 days, and the kicker, you'll give a positive feedback for that seller. That is the golden trifecta for Amazon. It takes about 19 million observations for that to run in one subselect, so jewelry, sporting goods, home goods, and it gets even worse when you get into things like sweaters and shirts. It's just an absolute nightmare. So what I'm saying is, if you want to use AI and ML, depending on the diversity of the thing you're thinking of, you need massive, massive data. But if you're at a bank, here's another way of saying it. If you can put it in an Excel spreadsheet, you damn sure don't need an AI or an ML. You just don't. It's small, it's tiny data. And lots of people have been convinced over the years to buy these expensive people who claim they have. No, they're not even claiming. They have it. I mean, at Amazon, there are more PhDs from Harvard, Yale, Princeton. Name the school, the best schools in the world. A fat guy from Oklahoma with a PhD from Arkansas went in there, and they thought I was insane. I was fatter then. I lost weight. My jokes don't get any better. So anyway, they all thought I was crazy because they all forgot that one key thing that anyone who's gone to postgrad or graduate school knows is you don't go to college to learn what to do in a situation. You go to college to learn what not to do. I've seen more people use the wrong tools to solve problems than I see people use the right tools to solve problems. And that's a staggering and terrifying thing. And I've met several of you and we've spoken, and it's fun and I enjoy talking to you. But it is terrifying how the industry is completely willing to say, hey, let's spend, $8 million a year on some dadgum AWS. It's going to make us better, smarter, faster, stronger. I'll smell good too. Aye. That's right. But it doesn't work. And now I get to, so I've rambled a little bit, which is sort of my nature. Without a whiteboard, I suck. I said a bad word. I made it that far, too. Anyway, the point of all that, and please, everyone, stop me and ask a question if I have glossed over something, it was confusing, or I went too fast, because a lot of people say I do, but I think they're full of crap. God, you guys are terrible at jokes. I'm not going to tell you anymore. So, the reason that people, and when I say people, I mean analysts, managers, VPs, directors, chief data officers. The reason they buy into this crap is because there's peer pressure in organizations. Culturally, people are being trained to follow the herd, follow the herd, follow the herd, follow the herd. Oh, I want to kill myself. So I spent 18 years in the Army. I know I don't look a day over 30. You agree, don't you? Okay, so anyhoozle. And in that 18 years, I learned one thing. Groupthink is a killer. It is the absolute most caustic thing that happens in any organization, whether it's the military, a hospital, an analytical group, a bank, an insurance company, it doesn't matter. Be the dissenter. Be the one who says, really? And this is my conclusion. I wrote it right here. If you want to grow data scientists who will tell you this isn't a big data problem, this isn't an AWS, ADLS, Azure, whatever, it's not that, and you want them to use the appropriate tools, I'm going to give you, I feel like I'm doing ShamWow, the magic bullet for it. And it's one that I learned accidentally. It's really kind of funny. The way Microsoft is structured organizationally, it's really a bunch of small companies with CEOs that are called CVPs. So my old boss from Amazon became the CVP of Azure ML. I was employee number 3 and drove him nuts. And then I also worked on a team called Xbox Surface, or hardware manufacturing, Xbox Surface, Connect, and keyboards and mice. You don't care. The CVP of that was Brian Tobey. And for whatever reason, Brian figured out that I was, and I'll say this in a very generous way, different from other people. That I don't just say yes when you ask me a question. It doesn't matter who it is. There was even a joke at Microsoft whenever I worked there that I have no survival instincts whatsoever, often called suicidal in meetings. But I'm not. The truth is more important than me. The facts are more important than me. They're more important than you. Even if you forget every stupid joke I say and every stroke of my passing back and forth, please don't forget that. It breaks my heart and my soul down inside on a very emotional level to watch people say yes to data that's wrong. And I don't know why. I should get therapy for it. I've thought about it, but I don't want to fix it. So that being the case, Brian Tobey found out I was not a yes man. And so Brian used to come by my desk. So think about this now. You got Steve Ballmer, Satya Nadella, Brian Tobey, and then my general manager, my senior director, my director, my manager, and then this one principal analyst, mathematician or nerd, whatever you want to call it. And Brian would come by my office and he'd lean his head in and say, hey dude, you got a minute? I was like, yeah, Brian, what's up? And he'd say, all right, I just got this answer from everybody. They're telling me it's the right answer. What do you think? And to me, he was just a person. And I would answer him honestly. I said, based on what I see, they're feeding you a poop chute. Or, you guys know what that means? Okay, I can draw a picture. And so Brian would be, all right, cool, thanks. And then as soon as he'd walk away, like people would just swarm around my office. GMs, VPs, directors. Why was Brian in your office? What are you doing? What'd you do? I'm like, he just wants to talk. I don't know. Maybe he likes me. I've been working out. And anyway, and he did that for the nearly 4 years I was there. He would just show up. Or he would come sit down and eat with me at lunch, which I did hate that because they have a big communal dining place, and when you're sitting there eating and the principal comes sits down to talk to you, it sucks. It's just, wow, it's bad. But I learned something from Brian indirectly, and he never said it to me. He and I weren't friends. In fact, in a way, I really didn't like him. He had the biggest collection of Maseratis, I think, in all of Redmond. We never talked about his Maseratis. I did race him once, and he beat me. Brian taught me, and this is the most valuable thing I'll say today. It is the cure for using big data incorrectly, cloud computing incorrectly, and data science incorrectly. And I mean this as passionately as I can be. Care about your scientists. Care about your analysts. I know we smell funny. I know we talk funny. Some of us don't take baths. Some of us don't remember to comb our hair. They used to make a joke at Microsoft, do you hire the stinkiest people you can find? And I say, no. I hire people who are good at what I need them to be good at. And I don't care what they look like. I swear as the Lord is my witness, they had a competition to see who could come up with the most messed up hair every morning. These guys would show up and they looked like they just crawled out of a coffin. It was just ridiculous. And they smelled like it too. But they were brilliant. I mean, I would cry when I would see the beauty of what they could do. I mean, they could write equations faster than I could think of them. And I was like, I hate you so hard. But when Brian took that interest in me, it was the first time I ever took an interest in me. You guys get that? You see what I'm saying? I've been a mathematician my whole life, unintentionally. I'm not the Rain Man, but I'm sort of an idiot savant, or just the first part. But Brian taught me that what I was doing was actually useful. And here's the crazy part. This is the punchline. This is the punchline. I've been at a lot of different companies, and people are like, oh my God, how'd you get hired at Amazon? How'd you get hired to Google? How'd you get hired to Harvard? How'd you hire? And I would say, for one reason, I'll never lie to anybody about this data. The data is more important than me. It's more important than you. It's the only reason I'm here is to make money for this company. That is my measure of worth at this company. And people are like, dude, what are you, greedy? I'm like, no, that's just the stick that I agreed to be measured by. And I will do the damnedest to do the best I can for whoever I work for. You know, right now I work for governments. I'm doing a very small gig where I go around and I predict crime in cities. And people are like, what are you, I've heard the Minority Report more times tonight than I've ever heard it. It's actually hysterical. I never think of it as a Minority Report. What I think of is I have 2 daughters and 2 sons. And if I could predict when a guy is going to walk up the street and beat the hell out of one of them or rob them or worse, and I could tell the police to be there an hour early, patrol that street, I'd do it in a heartbeat. But I digress. When you take the time, and let me give you the hints. Here's how you care about your data scientists. Here's how you care even about application developers. How many people in here are developers? So I've been writing code since '83. When I was a little kid. I was in junior high. But so I think I saw about 8, maybe 10 hands. I love writing code. I don't know why. I'd love to take a pill and forget it. I really wanted to be a ballerina. I'm kidding, I don't. But like fat guy in a little coat. I used to do that one. I was pretty good at it. But what you do is this with your analysts and your developers. It works very well. Hey, Bill. That model you built, you mind coming by and showing it to me and walking me through it? And this is the litmus test. He will either shit himself and go blind, you may quote me, or he'll come show it to you. And he'll talk you through it. And you don't need to know math, because you all know how to tell when somebody's telling you something that they believe in, they understand, and they can articulate. Now, there are people out there who have a little bit of anxiety when they talk through things. But if somebody can't write down the model neatly on a piece of paper or a whiteboard, and maybe give them a day to practice and prepare for it. If they can't talk you through it step by step, what does this variable do? What does this variable do? Why are you using that technique? It doesn't matter if you understand the answer. It literally doesn't. Brian Toby has no idea what I do. He couldn't find his ass in a closet with a flashlight. But I love the guy because he taught me how to find people who are good at what I do. Because up until then, the only way I found good people is really dumb. They'd call me and ask, hey, can I work on your project? I'd be like, what, are you stupid, dude? You got a Fields Medal. I'm just a dumbass at Microsoft. They're like, yeah, but you get cool projects. I'm like, well, yeah. Seriously. talk to your analysts, talk to your developers. Hey, Mr. Developer, I heard you wrote this really cool Python algorithm. Come to my office and show it to me. Let's walk through it. I just want to understand it. I won't understand all the code, but just tell me the logic, how it works. This is the sort of the coup de grace of this. HR sucks at screening talent. Do not expect a recruiter to bring you the perfect candidate. They can't. These guys are recruiting 15 people for 3 different departments at the same time. Let alone do they understand your business model, your problems? I mean, I love what Amazon's doing. They're hiring ex-cheerleaders from all the football teams, which is a great idea. But it has nothing to do with what I do. Just doesn't. When I hired my first SQL developer at Amazon, I interviewed 94 people. And I would say, all right, today, all I want you to do is an inner join. Table A, table B. The index is table A index, table B. These are the primary keys. It's the same. Join those for me. Fold up like a house of cards. I kid you not. These guys have it on their resume. I wrote SQL at IBM, at MIT, Harvard, Yale, Princeton. Well, teach me some stuff. I want to do a left outer join. I want you to find the first record of a sale that occurred in December. And they're like, it's like I gave them X-Lax. They just poop all over themselves. Oh, I don't actually write the code. I just read the books. I'm like, well, what good are you? Literally, what good are you? And I've asked them that. I will say there was one man, and he sticks in my mind because he was so beautiful and so honest. I asked him all these questions. We've been going for about 15 minutes. I said, how do you think you did? Because he didn't answer a single question. He said, I don't think I should be applying for this job. I'm like, I think you're onto something. And then I said, what do you want to do? Maybe I can help you get that job. And I did. I helped him get the job. He wanted to be a PM more than he wanted to be a data scientist, but that was the role that was open, and he needed a job because he had a wife and kids. They're still human beings. I'm a human being, believe it or not. I have two ex-wives who both claim I'm alien, and I wish. They don't mean they just like from other planet alien. So I will recap, if I may. Big data is an incredibly powerful tool. I love it. I lust it. I love writing AI and ML into it. I've written more deep learning algorithms in the last 7 years than I've written any other algorithm. I have algorithms that I could film you right now and get your heart rate, blood pressure, respirations, anxiety level, arousal, happiness, sadness, name it. We can do all of it. It's trivial now. Computers do it just like that. But it takes 22 billion observations to do one of those. Think about that for a minute. 22 billion is a lot of cookies. If we stacked cookies, I'm not sure it's to the moon, but it's got to be close. Well, at least 10 feet. But anyway, so big data is a fantastic tool. ADLS, Azure Data Lake Storage, I'm not a big fan of it, just to be truthful. It's pricey. AWS is brilliant. When you put Snowflake in AWS or NoSQL, it's actually to die for. It's sublime. But if you run an environment that is highly transactional but does not create a lot of new data, you're going to be paying for it with your soul. It is incredibly expensive, right? Like even with, if you can get a private cloud inside of AWS to run your analytics in, it's affordable then, because I'll run regressions all day long and I'll burn up micro transactions. But big data is a wonderful tool. Don't buy the crap that people tell you. Take 5 minutes and do a Google search for it. Look for, pick the tool. AWS uses practical. You'll find videos. There are nerds out there who love to film themselves. You'll find none of me. Data science. I go back to talk to your data scientists. I hate the term data scientist, by the way. There are computer scientists and there are mathematicians. One of them is very good at sparse data. One of them is very good at big data. One of them can write data that is easy, or code that is easily put in production. The other one can do it, but he's slow and annoying, a little overweight. All right, he gets it. It's like, why does nobody get these jokes? You guys are killing me. All right, so I said I would leave time for questions. I ran a little long, sorry. What was the other thing? Sorry, one more thing. I'm recapping. You're supposed to say it 3 times and then say it again at the end, right? So this is that part. I think I'm on 3. I could have lost count. Talk to your analysts. Talk to them like they're your best friend that you lost and haven't seen in 10 years. I don't care if you're the CEO. I don't care if you're the CIO, CSO, or MNOPQ. Why? Because if you believe in them, they'll believe in them. And they will work until they bleed from their eyeballs. I promise you this. I am not making this up. They just want to know that you care about their work and that it's not just a paycheck for you and them. You've got to believe in people, because businesses are not businesses. It is a collection of people solving a problem that everyone believes in. That's what it is. I mean, where is Michaela? Where is she? Oh, there she is. So she has really good social skills. We sat and talked for like 30 minutes. She's loquacious. She is kind, considerate. She is very interpretive of other people's emotions. She even does a thing, it's a psychological thing, that when someone's talking to her, she mimics their body movements. Do you know why we do that? It's actually it's a primate trait. You do it to make the other one feel at ease. When you use the same words that they do, she does it all the time. You make them feel at ease. So anyway, I don't have good social skills, and I get it, and I don't care. But I love what I do, and I know that there are mountains of people like me out there, and they want to work for you. They all do. But they want you to care about their work. You don't have to give a shit about them or me, because we don't matter. The work matters.